In not too long, at about 8:25, we start seeing the eclipse moving across the moon, and about an hour later we'll get to the full lunar eclipse, the so-called blood moon, because suddenly the moon will be in the Earth's shadow, rays will be refracted from the Earth, and we'll have this beautiful, we hope, blood moon across South Africa. It will be seen. Some parts a little cloudy, but we heard earlier that in most parts of South Africa you will at one stage be able to get a glimpse of this blood moon. Let's give you a tantalizing visual taste of what you can expect in this insert, and then I'm reporting from the roof of SABC. I'll be with our astrophysicist tonight, Professor Liu, just to guide us through some of the technicalities around something which would otherwise just be magnificent, and it is on its own. Let's take a look. So we have seen blood moons before, but what we're going to see tonight is very unique. It will not be seen in the next 100 years or so, according to some of the experts, because it will be the longest lunar eclipse of the 21st century. We're talking about a blood moon lingering in the night sky, and we'll get a beautiful view of it from across Africa, across South Africa. In the run-up to that, we're bringing you some of the facts, some of the science behind this, and I'm delighted to be speaking again to an astrophysicist, Professor Liu, currently with UNISA. So you're helping students. You're involved in the SKA, our very big scientific project, and formerly with NASA as well. So turn your head just behind you, look at that moon, and tell us what we're going to see. Describe the changes we're going to see and exactly what is behind those changes.
So I think the things to bear in mind today is there is the moon that we see in the sky, and we will see it turn red, and it is this cosmic object that we see. But we should also try and remember about the real moon itself, this satellite that goes around Earth. And we are going to experience this tonight. So just remember those two, what we are really seeing in the sky, and then this actual moon as it's going to reveal itself to us and its relation to Earth.
So describe what's happening as the eclipse begins and as the moon turns red.
Brilliant. So first, the moon itself doesn't shine, it's reflecting sunlight, and it's so very bright today because it's at the opposite part of the sun to Earth. And of course then Earth will go in between, and it will go in Earth's shadow and start to darken. So remember that part, that is, it's at these opposite parts of the sun, and that's why it's so very, very bright. And then at the height of the eclipse, it will be when it's at the exact opposite of where the sun is.
So it's exactly in the Earth's shadow. Describe then why it still beams red light.
That's a brilliant question. So it beams the red light because light from the sun gets reflected from the atmosphere of the Earth. The atmosphere of the Earth has these molecules, nitrogen and oxygen, that we breathe, and that refracts light from the sun into the focus of the shadow that would actually be dark if Earth didn't have the atmosphere. So that red we are seeing is actually similar to the atmosphere. You know how the sun turns red at sunset. The atmosphere doing that.
People talk about the rays being bent in a way that's not very scientific, but is that a good way to understand it? The sort of sun's rays bending around the Earth and hitting the moon and making it look red.
Bending is a perfectly nice way. We scientists have these other fancy words like refract. So if you want to use a scientific word, then it's refract, but it is bending.
You were quite excited earlier tonight about the fact that we are able to time this eclipse from moment to moment, from second to second. To you, that shows where we are in terms of science, I guess.
Oh yes, and I think one of the other exciting things to think about is we are talking about the moon going into the shadow of the Earth. So the speed that the moon is going at this, into this path turns out to be about 1 kilometer per second. So as you watch this event, you can actually think how far the moon has traveled because you're just counting a kilometer per second. So after 1 minute, it will be 60 kilometers and so forth. So you can actually count how far this moon has traveled. We've learned from high school, all of us, or rather primary school, that the moon rotates around Earth, and now we actually get to see it in real life.
And we can measure it in real life. So what about at the beginning of time? People would look up and see the moon turning red. They had none of this knowledge. Can you as a scientist sort of grip that mysticism, all the belief that grew up around that? It must have been strange.
Oh, this is exactly. I mean, this is one of the oldest human sciences, and so we take on from that tradition of wondering what is happening and how it got us here.
But now we know.
Now
but
we know.
It's still beautiful to you.
It's still beautiful, and actually a lunar eclipse is one of the places where it was first established that Earth is round, because that shadow has a curve.
Thank you so much, Professor. I think we'll be able to chat to you again, Professor Liu from UNISA, and we're going to continue our coverage from the roof. Let's just take a short break.
Clientele funeral plans.
It's your final gift of love.
I chose a clientele funeral plan because it's affordable and suits my budget.
I chose clientele because they are an original. They've been around for a long time, and I know within my family are in good hands.
I'm a farmer and I'm a businessman, and I know a good deal when I see one. Clientele is a good deal.
Clientele is the name I trust.
SMS plan to 31043 and we'll call you back.
The people who burn the spoon are our parents. They want us to have a bright future, but they are doing this.
Refrain from burning schools, refrain from burning property. I am not missing my words. Those that shall be found, definitely they must face the full might of the law.
Welcome back. We're coming to you live from the roof of the SABC. And earlier we took you to Observatory, one of the highest points in Joburg. I think that we can compete here. We're looking down on a beautiful skyline, and just above me, the moon, looking bright and full. We heard from our astrophysicist that it's standing right in the sun's rays right now. But that's ahead of the longest lunar eclipse in the 21st century. Possibly we won't see anything this long for another 100 years. And a lunar eclipse, of course, when it moves into the shadow of the earth and starts beaming those bent sunbeams that make it look red. We don't know exactly how it'll look. It depends on the cloud cover, on the conditions, climate, things like that. We don't know exactly what color, but we'll wait and see. Let's see how Durban is preparing for the longest lunar eclipse.
Moonstruck enthusiasts everywhere are preparing to gather for the spectacle this evening. It's something that happens every 8 to 10 years. In Durban, cloudy skies have often spoiled the view of keen amateur astronomers. But those in the know say if you find yourself on a high hill with a clear view of the night sky, you'd have a perfect sighting. No fancy equipment is needed. The eclipse will be clearly visible with the naked eye. But a pair of binoculars could help enhance the view. Countries in the southern hemisphere are in prime position.
The moon, the sun and the earth are so aligned that we have a protracted lunar eclipse. And apart from that, the eclipse is going to occur at our sunset, which means that the western hemisphere is not going to see it at all.
Well, because it's a specific natural event and you don't often see it. I can't actually remember ever seeing it before. So it's something you shouldn't miss.
Astronomers say the eclipse should start from 8:30 tonight and will end after midnight. Renee Heine, SABC News, Durban.
Very nice. Okay. So I'm going to do the weather with him, and then I'm going to go to the professor again to talk about Mars and the other things going on. All right, so let's come back to us live on the roof of SABC, and what we're showing you is our vantage point looking at the moon. And I'm going to bring in first our in-house meteorologist Azwi to give us a sense of sort of cloud conditions. How's it going to? It's going to be cold, I'm sure, in most parts of South Africa.
It is cold up here right now. Like, I wish I had a coat or something. Maybe I can borrow yours.
I'm sorry, maybe just now in the break I'll share with you for a while.
Yeah.
But across South Africa generally, are we going to have a good view?
Yes, generally we do have a best view, and we are on one of the best views in South Africa right now. Going to Gauteng, most parts of Northwest, Mpumalanga, Limpopo as well. But the far northern parts of Limpopo, we are still expecting conditions that may bring few clouds. But the worst part of it is the Eastern Cape and the Western Cape, because of the cold front that has just entered South Africa at night and currently is bringing rains along the coastal regions of Eastern Cape going to Western Cape. So it will be partly cloudy with a chance of isolated showers. So due to the conditions that it will be isolated, there is a chance that if you just wait long enough
and run outside. So let me just tell you very quickly, at SABC News Online, we're asking you tonight, are you watching the moon? And when this eclipse starts, we'd love to get your views. Tell us where you are, show us what you can see, and we'll collate that all together and bring it to you at the end in one beautiful montage of how South Africans experience the longest lunar eclipse of the 21st century. So back to Azwi. So where's the worst place?
Well, the worst place is the Eastern Cape.
And the whole province, basically?
Mostly towards the coastal regions, but the far interior is way better because we're not expecting lots of clouds in those areas, mostly sunny skies like we're seeing right now. If you just look in the northern parts of Johannesburg towards Centurion going to Pretoria, there is a thin cloud there, but it won't be there for long. It will quickly dissipate like the far interior of Eastern Cape, but the coastal areas, that's where I'm concerned about.
All right, and the absolute best vantage point?
We are at it.
Fantastic. That's what I love to see. All right, let's bring Professor Lou back. You can step in shot with me, Professor. And there are other things going on in the sky tonight. We were talking earlier about how Mars, I think, is going to look quite beautiful tonight. So looking behind you, just tell me what's going on in the skies tonight.
Yes, so next to the moon in the sky, there is Mars just to the right of the moon for us here in the southern hemisphere. There are also other planets that are visible. So there's Jupiter if you look straight overhead right now, and there's also Saturn. And all these planets we see on the sky in this big line that we call the ecliptic. And essentially this line is the same line where we would see the sun crossing the sky during the day. And this big line is actually the plane of the solar system where all the planets rotate around the sun. So these planets are actually then displaying the plane of our own solar system. It turns out this plane is actually the plane where all these planets, including our own Earth, actually formed. So this big display is actually a display of our own formation on Earth, and it's incredible indeed.
It sounds beautiful. Just to my naked eye, so Mars looks much brighter than usual, yes. or am I imagining that?
No, you are not imagining. So Mars is looking so bright because it's closest to Earth than it ever gets in its orbit around the sun. So, and it gets so close once every 15 years. So the spectacle that we are seeing of Mars right now is special on its own.
Yeah, so it's worth going out tonight, definitely, no matter what the weather is.
It's definitely worth going out, enjoying the eclipse and enjoying all these planets, and of course a few other constellations around as well. The Southern Cross we pointed out earlier on, just to the left of us, for example.
So tell us what's going on. I usually notice the Southern Cross. It's the only thing I can identify in the sky. So what would you see going on around that tonight?
So
just some of the brightest stars, I guess.
Okay. The Southern Cross itself has 2 pointer stars. That's just 2 stars off the cross. And then it depends where you are in the country. If you happen to be in a very, very dark area, you'd see a lot more stars. You'd also see part of our galaxy, the Milky Way. It will be, near the Southern Cross. Near the Southern Cross, there's one dark area we call the cold sack. It turns out to be an area where stars are forming, in our galaxy.
We don't really know the color that the moon is going to turn, do we?
Yes, and also this color is dependent on the atmosphere and that light from the sun getting reflected there. So we would expect it to be red here because the atmosphere is not unusual. The very, very opposite of this, for example, would be if there was a volcano here and suddenly ash was thrown in the atmosphere. Then this ash would really make it difficult for any sunlight to really go through, and then you'd really see that very dark eclipse and the moon totally disappear.
Sure, all right. It's exciting stuff. I'm not really sure of the exact time, but 8:24 we start seeing it. But this is slowly, only an hour later, turning blood red. That's a wrap for now from the roof of the SABC.
We don't want any death. All traditional places must be centers to govern and administer initiatives.
The agenda is to collapse what was once the leading electricity producer in the whole world.
I'm still waiting for him to go lay charges against anybody.
I have.
and unzima lo msebenzi uvuka ekuseni emsebenzini awazi noba uzobuya na andazi uba ndingathini isisu wam ingasemkhali ngokunzima.
Young people make up the majority of the people in this country. So why is it that the job market is filled with old people?
We also need someone who can help us with everything. Job opportunities are things that could do.
High levels of violent behavior in our schools, learners physically attacking other learners, learners physically attacking teachers, and teachers attacking learners.
The laws that are governing health today will all have to be amended and be changed. Nothing is going to stay the way it is now.
Need to know more about the markets? This is where it all starts, at the SABC's headquarters in Auckland Park in Johannesburg, South Africa. Our team work tirelessly to make sure you are on top of the markets. We analyze, report, crunch the numbers, call in the experts, package the news, and bring you critical global market updates from the JSE.
We'll unpack exactly what's shaping markets.
They are in tune, and they are your team making sense of the markets every day on SABC News.
Welcome back. We're coming to you live from the roof of the SABC, and I feel very high up and very lucky to have this vantage point of the moon ahead of the lunar eclipse. So earlier we took you to observatory, also in Johannesburg, quite a high point, and a lot of astrologers coming out, and astronomy, let's not mix those up, an astronomy society sitting out, a lot of people picnicking and looking up at the sky. Let's see what some of them had to say.
It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. We're here to see the blood moon. I was in for a treat. I looked through the telescope and I saw Jupiter and its 3 moons, hoping to see some aliens on the moons, but unfortunately not.
Well, I hope you do get what you came here for. Can you just please tell me, I know you said to me that you were 13 years old, what made you decide to come here today?
I'm here to see the eclipse because it's my first time seeing the red moon, and because it's National Science Day next week, and because I know that we're in the highest point in Johannesburg. That's why I'm here to see the eclipse.
Is this something that you may one day perhaps be interested in studying? Are you a budding scientist maybe?
Yes.
All right, there we also have budding scientists with us here. And also, can you just please tell us, sir, I saw you were sitting with your wife here, the both of you. What made you leave your home tonight to be here among other Joburgers?
We are members of Astrology Society. We come here every second Wednesday of the month. We get interesting lectures on black holes, stars, planets and all that. And that's why we're interested in what's happening to the moon. And this is something that I only see once in my lifetime. I may not see it again. And the next one I hear may be in 2023. I'm not too sure.
All right, so I don't know, maybe he was also mixing up astronomy, astrology, but the society out at Observatory. We're a little while away in Johannesburg, Auckland Park, looking up at the moon from the roof of the SABC building. And I'm joined again by Professor Liu with UNISA, formerly with NASA. And it's a great privilege to have you with us, Professor. Just remind us, so this is completely safe for people. They can look up tonight. There's no issue. It's not like looking at the sun.
Yes, this is not like looking at the sun. It's just looking at the sun reflecting of the moon. So enjoy it just with your naked eye. Enjoy the other planets there. If you have your camera out, you may take a series of shots so that you can actually do a recording of this process happen. We call this a time series shot. So enjoy it, and it will be fun.
You are part of the SKA Society. So in South Africa, we're very excited about this. I understand just this mega telescope. People looking up tonight, serious scientists, there's nothing new we can learn, is there? Do we know all the facts already about what's happening tonight, about blood moons, about lunar eclipses? Nothing new to learn?
Okay. So the SKA indeed has officially launched, and we are very excited about that. One of the exciting things that happened there was the best ever picture of our Milky Way, ever taken, and that's very exciting. I think it's a good time to be excited about science in South Africa now. Continue it beyond tonight.
But we can't learn anything new about the eclipse. We already know everything, don't we?
That's a very good point. There is no SKA observations of the moon that I know of happening right now. We already mentioned that it helps us look at the atmosphere with that band light, so that's one thing. There are some interesting experiments about the actual bending of light, and so there's an opportunity to make advances there.
All right, we're running out of time, but people shouldn't get too excited. I mean, it's basically starting right now, but it'll take a while, won't it? Just tell us what's in store very quickly.
Okay. So it is the longest eclipse, so it takes about 4 hours total, and it will go on until about 20 past after midnight. That will be the end of the eclipse. The actual peak of the eclipse is 22 past 10 tonight. So yeah, there's a whole lot in store tonight.
All right, and you said earlier maybe watch as it goes in and then try and catch that peak if you're cold and between dinner and glasses of wine. And thank you very much, Professor Liu. Thank you for being with us. Coming to you live from the top of the SABC building. This is a first for me. It's been great to have you with us. The team here on the roof. We leave you with this picture of the moon, and we will show you some other views. Let's take you to India as we say good night.
Everyone wants a dignified funeral.
That is what a clientele funeral plan can give you. Lasting dignity.
I just want my family to be there, all relaxed, not worrying about paying for anything, knowing that clientele covered everything.
I would like a dignified funeral, and the rest should be invested for my children's future.
Clientele funeral plans pay out in 24 hours. We will even send 200 Rand airtime. You can cover up to 13 people on one plan. Plans include grocery, unveiling, and transport benefit. Plus, you can get all your premiums back.
I told my family, I don't want a fancy funeral. They must come there for a cook sister and a sandwich, and then they must use the rest of the money for their future.
I will never stop paying my monthly premium. To me, paying my monthly premium is as important as buying groceries.
SMS live to 31043 and we'll call you back.
Is he facing conspiracy? What is the nature of the corruption charges that he faces? But if it's a blatant kind of corruption case, he faces a potential 15 years in prison.
expected that the moon will indeed at one point go red. So Christians are saying, well, we've known about this, those that follow that religion, and obviously those that believe in astrology, saying that this is a time of rejuvenation, transformation, and whatever it is that you may call it. So indeed, exciting times we live in, from whichever way you look at it.
Now, Matlako, very quickly, just before we wrap up, in terms of how long, do we know how long the eclipse is going to last? Because there was a time frame that was mentioned earlier, I think from around 9 o'clock until just after 11 p.m. this evening. Is that still the case? And how long does the whole rotation take? Do we have any details of that?
We don't necessarily have details on the rotation, but what we do know is we are actually expecting it in our part of the world to last up until 11 o'clock, obviously knowing that this is the longest lunar eclipse that we will be seeing in the country. We don't know when the next one will be. Perhaps in the next century, perhaps our great-grandchildren will live to see it.
Matlako, thank you so much for joining us as the sky gazers enjoy watching the blood moon. That was our reporter Matlako Komani joining us live from a view side in Observatory, Johannesburg.
And as the excitement is literally in the sky, Dr.
into the Earth's shadow about half an hour ago at 9:30 to rapturous applause here in Cape Town. And then it will stay completely in the shadow until just after 11, so just before 11:15. And then it'll slowly move out again, ending, the eclipse will end just after midnight tonight.
Now, I would like to believe that countries, particularly in the southern hemisphere, are at a prime advantage to have a look at this lunar eclipse. Why is this so?
Yeah, so these eclipses are not always visible all over the world. Lunar eclipses are very widespread compared to solar eclipses. This lunar eclipse is visible, as you said, across the southern hemisphere and all of Africa, as well as parts of Europe and Asia. North America is basically the only continent who's missing out on this lunar eclipse this time around.
You know, this lunar eclipse means different things to different people, and some people have even, it has actually triggered career choices for some people. And how come this is the longest lunar eclipse in this century? And, what can you as an astronomer learn from this particular eclipse?
Yeah, so your previous guest said we can predict very accurately when these eclipses come around. The next such eclipse visible in South Africa, total lunar eclipse, will be in 2025, but it won't be as long as this. So this is a particularly long one. The moon is moving directly through the center of the Earth's shadow, and therefore it spends a lot of time in the dark. From an astronomical point of view, we understand exactly what's going on here. We can predict these things centuries in advance, and it's basically the laws of gravity which allow us to do that. There is still some science that we can do by observing the surface of the moon like this on a night like tonight. We can learn something about what the moon is made of by looking at how rapidly it cools and where it cools. By looking at it in infrared cameras. So these are the sorts of things we can still do. There's still always things to learn. And as scientists, we're always endeavoring to try and find something new to learn.
And luckily, this can be viewed with the naked eye. Do we know why it's safe to do so?
Yeah, so a lunar eclipse is really nice from that point of view. It's basically the same as a full moon. It's reflecting sunlight. And in this case, it's reflecting even less sunlight than a normal full moon. So there really is very little light reaching your eyes. So perfectly safe. A solar eclipse, as you intimated, is very dangerous to look at because you are looking directly at the sun, which is never safe. So you have to have eye protection for a solar eclipse, but for a lunar eclipse such as this, it's perfectly accessible. Anyone can walk outside and just go take a look and enjoy quite an amazing spectacle.
Now, Daniel, I may not be where you are right now. Well, I'll be indoors throughout, in the duration of this lunar eclipse. But then just looking at the screen right now, the rising full moon changed from shining silver to deep blood red during this eclipse. Why is this so?
Yeah, so basically what has happened is as the moon has moved into the Earth's shadow, it stopped getting direct sunlight. Which would cause it to glow silver as we normally see. And what it's getting now is only the scattered light through the Earth's atmosphere. So essentially what it's seeing is a sunset, a circular sunset around the whole Earth. That's what you would be seeing if you were on the moon right now. So the only light it's getting is the scattered light through our atmosphere, which when it passes through the atmosphere at that angle, scatters red.
These lunar eclipses have fascinated cultures across the globe from time immemorial. Some have even triggered superstitious thoughts. Your view on some of the blood moon myths?
I'm a scientist, so from my point of view, it's an amazing and incredible, stunning astronomical spectacle. The fact that we can predict these sorts of things down to the minute, years and years in advance, which means that we can arrange events like this. Regarding the myths and superstitions surrounding it, I suppose those come down to personal preference and how people see these things affecting their daily lives.
Dr. Kunama, thank you so much for joining us and for your insights. That is Dr. Daniel Kunama. He's an outreach astronomer and a postdoctoral research fellow at the National Research Foundation of the South African Astronomical Observatory. He joined us live via Skype.
Well, time now for a quick break. The lunar eclipse is going on. You can view it with the naked eye, so you can step out of the house and just have a look. And yeah, it's history in the making.
I can feel the excitement right here in studio.
Well, we have to go to ad break. Stay with us.